Shalawam, and welcome back to The Hidden Chosen. I am Hadassah Saiwan, returning with a brand new study called Angels. And this is part one called An Overview, and we're going to take a look at the Seraphim. Now, this study is in connection still with the previous study called Who is Yahawah. We're delving deeper and we're looking at the heavenly host to understand more about Yahawah. Okay? Now, before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping because if you have watched my previous few studies, you will notice that certain slides were missing. And that's because the program is malfunctioning. It's malfunctioning because the operating system is old. It needs to be updated, but I can't because my computer is even older. There are no more updates. So my only option is to get a new computer, which I am thinking about, except if we are going to be leaving next year, Passover, then it doesn't make any sense to get a new computer. However, if we're still here for for Passover next year, then it is a thought that I have to consider. In the meantime, I will persevere with this as much as I can. If there are important images that I need you to see, I will either post it in a community post or do a backup study like I did in a previous study. And yeah, so hopefully that should rectify things. If there are slides that you want to see, then you could send me a message and I will make them available for you. Okay, so let's get started. Many people today are fascinated with angels because to us, angels are a mystery. They are a mystery because we can't see them with our natural eyes. When Adam and Hawa were in the Garden of Eden, they were able to see the angels. Nothing was withheld from them. They had the glory of Alahayam, Yahawah. They were able to see into all the realms, all the heavens above them. After their glory was shut off, and we're going to see that in a little while in this study. Once their glory was shut off, then everything became natural. They can only see in this realm. All right? And because angels exist above the dome, and we can't see beyond the dome, then we are not going to see the angels unless they present themselves to us. Okay? Some people are so engrossed with angels that they worship them and pray to them, which is idolatry and it is forbidden. But let us start from the beginning regarding angels to see who they are and answer the other related questions pertaining to their existence. Angels are spirits. That's the first thing we need to understand. They are all spirits created by Alahayam for his divine purposes in the heavens and on the earth. There are angels with feathered wings and there are angels without wings, yet they can travel throughout the dimensions in a flash. Okay? We're going to see the angels that have the wings and the angels that do not. Okay? As we go through each type of angel. There are many different kinds of angels depending on the purpose for which they were created. There are angels which were created to have the similitude, meaning the likeness of a man. Some have a form of a man mixed with other characteristics of creatures familiar to us, which we will see later on. Then there are angels which have very unusual forms, unlike a manly form. And Yahawah, who is Ezekiel, described one of those types of angels. And there are angels who do not have any form at all. And these types of angels are called spirits. Okay? Regardless of what they look like, They all play a divine role for Yahawah. As we are studying about Yahawah, we will have to look closely at his angels to understand more about him. So let's look at Yahweh, the book of Jubilees, chapter 2, verse 1. The angel of the presence of Yahawah spoke to Masha according to the word of Yahawah, saying, write the complete history of the creation, how in 6 days Yahawah Alahayam finished all his works and all that he created, and kept Shabbat on the 7th day and made it holy for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works. For on the first day he created the heavens which are above, and the earth and the waters, and all the spirits who serve before him, which are the angels of the presence of Yahawah, and the angels of sanctification, and the angels of the spirit of fire, and the angels of the spirit of winds, and the angels of the spirit of the clouds, and of darkness, and of snow, and of hail, and of white frost, and the angels of the voices, and of the thunder, and of the lightning, and the angels of the spirits of cold, and of heat, and of winter, and of spring, and summer, and of autumn, and of summer, and of all the spirits of his creatures, which are in the heavens and on the earth. He created the bottomless pit and the darkness, evening and night, and the light, dawn and day, which he has prepared in the knowledge of his heart. So right here we see that the angels were created on the first day. When he created the heavens, he also created the angels. Let's drop down to verse 18 of this same chapter. All the angels of the presence of Yahawah and all the angels of sanctification, these two great types of angels he has told to tell us to keep Shabbat with him in heaven and on the earth. Now, according to the apocrypha, the angels of the presence of Yahawah and the angels of sanctification are two categories of angels, where there are other subcategories of angels. So these are just two types of angels. All right? These particular angels are the ones we are most familiar with, as they have the form of man, either fully or partially. All right? We know this because they were created circumcised, unlike the other angels which have the form of beast or no form at all. So only if they have the form of a man will they be circumcised. All right? Yahweh, the book of Jubilees, chapter 15, verse 27. All the angels of the presence of Yahawah and all the angels of sanctification have been created already circumcised from the day of their creation. And before the angels of the presence of Yahawah and the angels of sanctification, he has sanctified Yashraal, that they should be with him and with his holy angels. So right here we see that the angels were already created circumcised, the ones that have the form of a man. And it happens to be these two groups of angels, the angels of the presence of Yahawah and the angels of sanctification. All right? So it means that they had to have a form of a man in order to be circumcised. Well, to be created circumcised. Okay? And we'll see why they were created circumcised in a little while. Let's drop down to verse 31 of the same chapter. He sanctified them and gathered them from among all the children of men, for there are many nations and many people, and all are his. And he's speaking of Yashraal. It is Yashraal that he has sanctified and gathered them from among all the children of men. All right? And over all nations he has placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. So all the nations that you see worshiping all these pagan gods, it is Alahayam that has driven them to do this. Okay? Verse 32. But over Yashwa'al he did not appoint any angel or spirit, for he alone is their ruler, and he will preserve them and require them at the hand of his angels and his spirits and at the hand of all his powers, in order that he may preserve them and bless them, that they may be his and he may be theirs from now on forever. And that's speaking of covenant. So the fact that he has preserved them and required them at the hands of his angels mean that the angels are, he uses the angels to help to preserve his people on the earth. Okay? All angels that have the form of a man were created already circumcised, showing us that there is a covenant with Alahayam and them. So this is the reason why they were circumcised, to show us today that they have a covenant with him. It's not the same kind of covenant that Yashwa'al has with him. It's a different kind of covenant. Because you know Alahayam, he is Alahayam of covenants. When he sent the flood, he made a covenant with his creation that he would never, the sign of that covenant was the rainbow, that he would never send another flood to destroy his creation. All right? This is also confirmed with them, meaning these angels, these two groups of angels, keeping Hashabath with him, which is another criteria of keeping covenant with Alahayam. So not only were they circumcised, but they also are told to keep covenant with him. To keep Shabbat with him. Keeping Shabbat is also one of the requirements of keeping covenant with him. This covenant with Alahayam has established within them a restriction to keep them from straying from their first estate and to intermingle with mankind. So if they have a form of a man, think about it for a second. What is there to restrict them from intermingling with mankind? He would have given them a command. And that command comes in the form of that covenant. Because the covenant is internal. If you really think about it, it's like the creatures on this earth. Why do they stay within their own kind? You will not see a dog with a cat. You would not see a monkey with a giraffe. Animals have this unspoken covenant where they stay within their own species. And that way the species are preserved and not become hybrids. And then eventually they become mutts, right? Because if all the creation was intermingling with each other, you would have no pure animal anymore. Everything would be all muted. All right? So this is the reason why these particular angels were created circumcised to prevent them from intermingling with mankind, with the daughters of men. All right, because they're all males now. And we see something of that effect happening anyway. We'll read about it. We will be reading about it. Let's go on. Let's go on. Let's see where I left off. And the angels who were created circumcised has set the precedent for all the males of Yashwa'al to be circumcised throughout their generations. which is the token of our covenant with Yahawah, and requiring us to also keep Hashabbath with him and with his holy angels. So we see that circumcision was not an afterthought for Yahawah. When he created his angels that have the form of men, he created them already circumcised, meaning that he already planned that his people that he would select from amongst all the other nations, that they too must be circumcised. And it is a sign of covenant, a token of the covenant. All right? And it goes even further now to keeping Shabbat. Let's look at Bara'ashayath chapter 6, verse 1. That's the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 1. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Alahayam saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them as wives of all which they chose. So these sons of Alahayam are not the sons of Cain, who is Cain. These are fallen angels. Okay? And they are not of the original 1/3 fallen angels. These are other angels that we know as watchers. Okay? We're going to talk about them later on when we get to their particular type of angel, that particular category of angel. All right? But I know some people, they say, well, no, that the sons of Alahayam will be the sons of Cain, which cannot be. I mean, if you really read what Alahayam did because of, and what these creatures did, and how they became giants, all right, you cannot think for 1 second that the sons of Alahayam are the same as the sons of Cain. Cannot be. They're the same species. So, I mean, the sons of Cain would be wicked, but it would not cause a change in the stature of mankind when they procreate. All right? You got to really think deeply on this. Okay, let's read on. Verse 4. Let's drop down to verse 4. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Alahayam came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same which were of old, men of renown. Okay? The giants came as a result of 2 different species cohabitating with each other and producing a hybrid species. That's what these giants were. Nephilim. All right? And they were called they were of old, men of renown, because they lived very, very long lives. All right? And they were powerful, powerfully evil, powerfully wicked. All that you're seeing happening on this earth is the result of these same evil spirits being utilized by the fallen angels. Let's look at the book of Jude, chapter 1, verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. So if these particular ones that went into the daughters of men are in chains, who is running the show today? There are 2 separate groups of fallen angels here. The one third that fell, that's one group. This was another group that were called the Watchers. And they were persuaded to do this thing. All right? The very same, the covenant that they had, they broke. They left. Let's go back to the previous slide. They left their first estate. It meant that they left their heavenly realm where they lived. They left the status of who they were, which would be angel, to enter into the dimension of man through that portal on Mount Hermon, to become fully like a man. These ones would not have wings. All right? Watchers do not have wings. And so they will have their stature somehow more of a reasonable height, because you know all these angels are tremendous in height. You're going to see this in a bit. So they had to change who they were in order to cohabitate with these daughters of men, because if they came through the portal like angels, the daughters of men would be too afraid of them. So they had to bring themselves down. They had to make changes in their stature, and even to make themselves more as human-like as possible. Not saying that they weren't, but angels come in various colors too. There's some of them that glow, as we have read in different accounts already. All right? So that's what Jude was speaking of when they left their first estate and they left their habitation. They left the heavenly realm and they changed who they were to become like man, so that they can marry the daughters of Cain. All right? And that was forbidden. And that was the purpose of their circumcision, to prevent this catastrophe from happening. Because this union between angel and mankind, the daughters of men, could not be blessed by Alahayam. All right? Angels were not created for procreation purposes. Mankind was. All right? That's why we have women. That's why the men, they have wives. Angels are all male if they have the form, a physical form. They have, it's always a male form. You will never see a female form. They have form of animals too, and they have form of a whale. But when it is a form of a person, it will always be of a male form. All right? Never a female, because they were not created to procreate. The first Hanawat chapter 6 verse 1. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born to them beautiful and fair daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and have children with them. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of this great sin. So they already knew what they were planning on doing was going to be sin, a great sin, a sin which would condemn them for all eternity. But they were driven by lust. Where did that lust come from? From the fallen angels, the one third. All right? And these are the ones that came through the portal. They said there were about 200 of them that came through the portal on Mount Hermon. And this was the reason why these angels have a covenant with Alahayam, to prevent them from committing this great sin of cohabitating with other species. And why Yashwa'al also have to have a covenant with him to prevent them from committing the great sin of idolatry. All right. Now, once these angels committed this great sin, the Nephilim that was born to them, then they started to mingle with animals and plants and birds. Oh, yeah. Once you start on the path of evil and wickedness and you've been cut off, if you have not been destroyed yet, and Al-Hayam, it has washed his hands of you, all right, you will continue on with even greater evil. There's no limitation to how much more wickedness you can do until he literally cuts you off and destroys you. So he put these 200 angels in chains under the earth, and their children, most of them were washed away in the flood because of this wickedness. All right. We discussed this when I did a study called the Nephilim. I did a very extensive study. This study is not about them. This is about the holy angels. Okay. All right. The first thing that we must all realize is that all angels were created to praise Yahawah continuously, and they were created to govern over his creation according to his will and purpose, and especially to preserve his people, the 12 tribes of Yashwa'al, from their enemies. That's why throughout the scriptures, you see, as we enter into the study of all these different angels, and this is just a touch. This isn't even all the angels that there are in the heavens. But once you start to see and understand how these angels function, then the scriptures are going to come alive. Then you're going to have great understanding as to the miracles and all the different things that happen on our people's behalf. Okay? Let's look at the first book of Adam and Hawa. Hawa is the wife of Adam, not Eve. Eve is a pagan goddess. All right? Let's look at chapter 4, verse 8. And Adam said to Hawa, "Look at your eyes and at mine, which before beheld the angels praising in heaven without ceasing." So before they sinned, their eyes were able to see all of the angels, all of them praising Yahawah. Let's look at first book of Adam and Hawa, chapter 8, verse 1. Then Adam cried and said, "O Alahayam, when we lived in the garden and our hearts were lifted up, we saw the angels that sang praises in heaven. But now we can't see like we once saw." Why? Because his glory, their glory was shut off. The glory allowed them to be able to see into the spiritual realm because they were perfect. Perfect with his glory. But once that glory was shut off and darkness entered in, now all they can see is what was before their faces. No, when we entered the cave, all creation became hidden from us. For the first time, they encountered the darkness outside because there was darkness in. When they had the light within, everything before them was light. There was never any darkness before them. Let's look at 1 Hanawat chapter 14, verse 19. And from underneath the throne came rivers of fire, so that I could not look at it. And he who is great in glory sat on the throne, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angels could enter or could behold his face because of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. Can you see? Not even the angels can behold the glory of Alahayam Yahawah. That's how powerful he is. The angels who are pure and holy still cannot look upon his glory. That's why when the prophets saw the angels, they always have their wings before their faces, covering their faces, or they're looking down, or doing both. Verse 22. The sea of fire surrounded him, and a great fire stood in front of him, and no one can draw close to him, because he is glory. His glory surrounds him. Even his angels are filled with his glory. And even though they're filled with his glory, the glory that is also around him, they still can't look upon him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, but he needed no holy counsel. So the angels come to him not to give him counsel, but to worship him. That's all they come to do. Worship him. Verse 23. The most holy ones who are near to him did not leave night or day. And until then, I have been prostrate on my face trembling. And Yahawah called me with his own mouth and said to me, Come here, Hanawak, and hear my word. And one of the holy ones came to me, picked me up, and brought me to the door. And I bowed down my face. So these holy ones, we're going to see, they're called the living ones, or the four creatures. Or actually, they're called creatures, they're called beasts. These are the ones that are in his throne room, and they never leave. And we're going to see why in a little while. All right? Second Hanwak, that's the second book of Enoch, chapter 8, verse 9. 300 angels, which are very bright, are there to keep the garden. This is the garden of Odan. And with incessant sweet singing with voices which are never silent, serve Yahawah through all the hours of the days. And we know that this is in third heaven. All right? These 300 angels are in the garden to take care of it, because Adam and Hawa, who were created to worship Alahayam, to be his children, to take care of the garden, were sent away from the garden because of sin. All right, if you go back to the scriptures, it says that he did not cause these the vegetation stuff to be watered with like rain or stuff, but he caused a mist to come up because he was keeping the vegetation at a consistent level of control. Like, he didn't want them to overgrow, right? And not that they would overgrow, but he wanted man that he would create to tend to his garden, to take care of it. And Adam and Hawa, they lived in the garden for about 7 years plus, and they were taking care of the garden until sin entered the picture, and they had to be sent out of the garden. And now the garden was again empty. So what Alahayam did was to bring these 300 angels in to help take care of the garden. He also brought Aliyah, who is Elijah, and Hanawak, who is Enoch, to also live in the garden, because he wanted not just angels in his garden, he wanted mankind in his garden. So Hanawak and Aliyah replaced Adam and Hawa temporarily until we, the southern kingdom, enter into the garden. When we're taken up in the chariots, we will be in the garden. By that time, Hanawak and Aliyah will take up their positions as the two prophets on the earth to cleanse Yashraal. All right? To cleanse the land called Yashraal. And I discuss all of this in the series called the Book of Revelation. All right, let's read on. And this is just the overview that we're going through right now, okay? They are, and I believe now we're going into the Seraphim. We're now going to take a look at the Seraphim. There are angels who remain in the presence of Alahayam continuously, and there are others who do not. We will look at each group of angels to see their other purposes. There are angels which are categorized as the watchers, also called Gregory. And by the way, watchers, Gregory, they're the guardian angels. Okay? And these guardian angels are there to look after mankind, after specific people. When we get to this category, we're going to discuss it even deeper. All right? Then we have the archangels, the angels over the creation, because they're the angels over the creation. And then we have principalities, we have powers, spirits, Shaparayam, which are the seraphim, also the Shalkari, and the phoenixes. I know that word phoenixes might surprise some people because when we hear about phoenixes, it's also it is to do with evil spirits. All right, but as we continue studying these scriptures, these about angels, you're going to understand a lot of things. All right. So these Chalkari and phoenixes, now the Chalkari and the phoenixes are the flying elements of the sun. I'm going to look at that in a little while. Then you have the Karabayam, who are the cherubim, and the Awapanayam, which are the Ophanim. These are the wheels that Yahawah, who is Ezekiel in chapter 1, saw. He saw it in chapter 1, and it's in chapter 10 as well. The wheels within the wheel within a wheel, though with eyes all around their rims, that is a special kind of angel called Opanim or Ophanim. All right, in our language, it is called Awapanayam, and the same thing with cherubim. In our language, it's called Karabayam, and seraphim in our language is Sharapayam. All right, but these angels are not listed in the order of their ranks. I just have them listed here. All right, they're not in their ranks yet, and that is another thing that we need to understand. All the angelic hosts are in ranks. There are ranks. Okay, just like in an army, you have ranks in the army, you have ranks in the angelic host. The seraphim and the cherubim are also referred to as the holy ones or the living ones because they dwell continuously in the presence of Alahayam. Whereas the other angels present themselves to him and then they would leave his presence. And now we will look deeper at the seraphim to learn more about them. Let's look at 2 Hanawak chapter 11 verse 1. Those men took me and led me up onto the fourth heaven and showed me the entire succession of activities and all the days and all the rays of the light of the sun and the moon. Let's go down to verse 5. And by day 15 groups of 10,000 angels attended, meaning the sun. And by night there were 1,000. And 6 winged ones go forth with the angels before the sun's wheel into the fiery flames, and 100 angels kindle the sun and set it alight. So these angels here, the 6 winged ones, these are seraphim. Angels with 6 wings are called seraphim. All right, and they're the ones attending to the sun's fiery flames. Now you're going to see in the throne room there are also seraphim. All right, let's go to chapter 12 of 2nd Hanawak, verse 1. And I looked and saw other flying elements of the sun whose names are phoenixes and chalcedony, and they're also seraphim. But these ones are slightly different, which are marvelous and wonderful, with feet and tails of a lion, and a crocodile head. They appear to be purple in color like that in the rainbow. Their size is 900 measures. Now, if you calculate how tall they are, that would be, if it's 900 cubits, it's 1,350 feet. Their wings are like those of angels. Each has 12 wings, and they attend and accompany the sun, bearing heat and dew as it is ordered them from Alahayam. So these particular seraphim are the ones in charge of the other six winged ones that are attending to the sun's fiery flames that set it alight. That's why they have 12 wings. All right. And if you notice how their combination of animals here, lion, crocodile head, and then they are purple, like the purple you see in the rainbow. All right. So by the way, the Nephilim, first generation, was 300 cubits. There were 300 cubits, which, if you calculate it in feet, would be 450 feet tall. That's the first generation. And compare that to 1,350 feet. Okay, there's some angels that are even taller than this. There's an angel whose foot, he has 1 foot on the sea and 1 foot on the earth. That's a tremendously big, that is a humongous, enormous angel. All right. All right. They can come very, very tall. All right, let's read on. Let's go to 2nd Yahawah, chapter 15, verse 1. Then the elements of the sun, called the phoenixes and chalcodri, which are the seraphim, break into song. Therefore every bird flutters its wings, rejoicing at the giver of light, and they break into song at the command of Yahawah. You know, like if you're living on a farm, because you wouldn't notice this in the city. All right, but you would notice this if you live on a farm, if you live in the country area where you don't have the noise of traffic and whatever noise pollution that there is, right? The sun rises and the birds begin to sing. It's the most beautiful sound ever. And that's because the phoenixes and the chalcodri, they break into song, which trigger the birds to break into song. And that's why when the sun starts to rise, the birds begin to sing. We are not hearing what the birds are hearing. Because not only do we not see the angels, we can't hear them either. When they're praising the Most High, when Adam and Hawa were in the Garden of Eden, not only did they see the angels praising Yahawah, they also heard them singing. All right. Let's continue on. Sorry. We already look at the verse above. Seraphim are very unique angels as they are ranked the highest of all the angels. According to the apocrypha and accounts written about them in the Bible, there are various types of seraphim. So already we saw the seraphim that attend to the sun. You have the 6 winged ones, and then you have the 12 winged ones. All right? Although we will look at a few here, there's no doubt that there are varieties of all other angels that are not spoken about, including the seraphim. This presents a mystery to us regarding the vast number of angels and the varieties, as only a few have been named and documented by our forefathers. Yet in due course we will come to know all of these angels and by their names. So once we are regathered and we wash in the sea of water, and we eat of the tree of life, and we become holy and righteous and pure, and the glory of Yahawah is flowing from inside of us outward, we're going to be able to see every single angel, and we're going to know them all by name. All right? We know all their names. The phoenixes and the calcadri are another kind of seraphim as compared to what Yahawah and Yawachanan saw in their visions. So Yahawah, who is Isaiah, and Yawachanan, who is John the apostle, they saw seraphim. Now, a lot of people make mistakes comparing when they look at the seraphim and when they see the cherubim. All right? And even the seraphim in their visions, meaning the visions of Yahawah and Yawachanan, appear different from each other. Seraphim and not seraphims, as you see written in the Bible. The word seraphim is already plural. You don't need to add an S to it. It is the plural form of the word seraph. It is sharap in our language, called operai, and sharapayam. All right? Each description of their appearances seemed quite different from each other, with the exception of the 6 wings, which the 2 types of seraphim in the throne room have, whereas the phoenixes and the calcadri have 12 wings each. The seraphim found in the throne room of Yahawah remain constantly in his presence. There are seraphim above the throne, and there are seraphim before the throne. These are their positions in the throne room and the reason why they are ranked the highest of all the angels. And now we know that there are also seraphim who govern over the sun and its angels, the other seraphim. Let us explore these majestic beings. So let's look at Yahawah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw Yahawah sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain, meaning 2, he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is Yahawah Sabaoth, Yahawah of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen Hamalak the king, Yahawah Sabaoth, Yahawah of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand. So he has a hand, so that means that he has a male-like form, all right, which he had taken with the tongues from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. Now, is this the angel speaking to Yahawah, or is this Yahawah speaking through his angel to Yahawah? It's the latter. Alahayam speaks through his angels. So the messages that they bring, the words that they speak are not their words. They are his words that they're speaking on behalf of him. And this is the reason why we are looking at angels. Okay? This is how he communicates with his people. One of the many ways that he communicates with his people is through his angel. His angels, not just the seraphim. Okay? Let's look at Revelation chapter 4, verse 6. Now, this is Yawachanan, the apostle, when he saw the seraphim. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Now, people can easily get confused between this vision and call these creatures here, these angels, cherubim. But you have to read carefully. All right? There's a difference. Verse 7. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast was like a calf, and the third beast had a face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. So when you look at those descriptions, and you look at the description of what Yahawah saw, Ezekiel saw, it is easy to get confused. But you got to read with Ruach HaKodesh. He will explain these things to you. All right? I got confused too because I used to think that these were cherubim. All right, let's move on. Verse 8. And the four beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Yahawah Alahayam Shaddai. That's Yahawah Alahayam Almighty, who was and is to come. And when those four beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him who sat on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Yahawah, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. So you see that these four beasts, and there's a reason why Yahweh called them beasts, because they had a beast-like form. They did not have the form of a man, as compared to the seraphim that are above the throne, that have the form of a man. All right? They have a form of man because they have a hand. They have hands. They have feet. All right? You know that 2 wings cover their faces, so they have faces like people. 2 cover their feet, and 2 they did fly. So these particular seraphim, they have somewhat a form of a man, whereas these 4 beasts now that are also seraphim, they have the forms of animals, like the chalcodri and the phoenixes. They also have forms of animals. All right? And if you notice that every time the seraphim praise Yahawah, that whoever is around them, they also break out in praises. We saw when the chalcodri and the phoenixes begin to praise, the birds begin to praise. We see when the seraphim above the throne begin to praise, you see even the house moved and was filled with smoke. There's always something going on when the seraphim begin to praise. And now, when these 4 beasts before the throne, begin to praise the 24 elders, they start to praise as well. Okay? We cannot confuse the description of these seraphim with that of the description of Yahawah, that's Ezekiel, who described the cherubim. It is easy to make this error as the descriptions seem similar, but we need to pay careful attention to what was being said. You got to look carefully, read carefully, and most importantly, read with Ruach HaKodesh. Yochanan saw a beast. All right? When he said beast, he's talking about animals. They had animal-like characteristics. They weren't animals, they were angels, but they had animal-like characteristics that we see on the earth. That's why he can compare them to lions, to a lion, to a calf, and to a flying eagle. All right? And Hanawak can compare the chalcodri and the phoenixes to that of lion and with the head of a crocodile and 12 wings. All right. It is easy to make this error as the descriptions seem similar, but we need to pay careful attention to what was being said. I know I'm repeating myself. Yochanan saw beasts, living beings that looked a lot like animals. That's why he called them beasts. There was only one which had the face of a man, whereas the rest of his description would be that of a kind of a beast. He didn't say what the body was like. He just said specifically this one had a face of a man. Okay? Yochanan did not go into much detail concerning these divine beings. He gave only general descriptions. But then again, we know that a lot of our writings have been either destroyed or hidden, and that's why we have only limited information. And that's all right. That's okay. Ruach HaKodesh will reveal to us what he wants us to know and to understand. Whereas the cherubim that Yahawah saw had 4 faces on one head each. I know a lot of people make the mistake and think that there are 4 heads on the body. They're not 4 heads. There's one head with 4 faces. You have a face in the front, a face in the back, a face to the right side, and a face to the left side. Okay? And each face seemed almost identical to the 4 beasts, the Seraphim. So when you look at the faces, they're almost identical to the beast called the Seraphim, except for one. And we're going to look at that in a little while. All right? We will go deeper into this when we look at the cherubim. We see that the Seraphim, the flying elements that govern the sun, have 12 wings each, and their forms are very different from the Seraphim above the throne and the ones before the throne. So you see, already we see 3 different kinds of Seraphim. Okay, 3 different kinds. And by the way, because we're not going to get into it here, let me just mention it here that the only difference between the beast, the 4 beasts, and the 4 faces of the cherubim is the calf is mentioned here in the Seraphim, whereas for the cherubim, it is mentioned as an ox, the face of an ox. All right? But we're going to look deeper at that later on in the study. In the next study, rather. The 4 beasts that Yochanan saw were also unusual because they had eyes in front and behind them and on their bodies. And we saw this description even with Yahawah when he saw the cherubim. And the wheel within the wheel, they also had eyes all around. This description of eyes are not unusual, as other kinds of angels were also described with eyes like the Alahayam, the wheels, and the cherubim. These eyes are not for decoration, as Alahayam have a purpose for everything which he created. They represent the omniscience and the wisdom of Alahayam, reflecting in these holy ones. Hence, the reason why they are the highest ranking angels and are constantly in his presence. They're the all-seeing ones. That's why they're filled with eyes in the front and behind. Each animal that Yochanan saw represents 4 aspects of Hamashiach and the purposes for which he came to the earth the first time. That's why there are these 4 animals. That's why these 4 beasts are almost identical to the 4 faces of the cherubim. The lion is symbolic of him, meaning Hamashiach, being the lion of the tribe of Yahawah and the judge of all. The calf, like a lamb, is symbolic of his purpose as the eternal sacrifice. So why the face of a calf or an ox and not the face of a lamb, because he already presents himself as the lamb who was slain before the foundation of the earth. And what we need to understand here is his purpose represented in these cherubim and these seraphim. He already represents himself as the lamb that was slain. But now we're seeing him as the eternal sacrifice, because these are sacrificial animals, the ox and the calf. All right? The man is symbolic of him coming on the earth for the first time to be flesh and to dwell among his people. And the flying eagle is symbolic of him as the word, the prophetic word, which he brought to the earth for his people when he came the first time as a man. So when he came, the people were sitting on in darkness until the light came. And he was that light. He brought his light to the earth. And that's his word, his truth. Because he released Ruach HaKodesh to now expound and to bring understanding and knowledge of his word. You see, the people had the word, but they had no understanding. That's why they were sitting on in darkness. That's the problem with many of us today. We're sitting on in darkness because we don't have an understanding of his word. All right? If you're not studying with Ruach HaKodesh, you're not going to have understanding. If you don't believe in HaMashiach, he's not going to release his Ruach HaKodesh to you to help you to have understanding. And that's the predicament where many of our people are in today. The flying eagle, I read that, when he came the first time as a man. So let me read that again. And the flying eagle is symbolic of him as the prophetic word, the word that was made flesh, the word that is also truth, which he brought to the earth for his people when he came the first time as a man. This flying eagle shows that his word does not remain at a standstill, but it is ever moving to accomplish all that he wants it to accomplish. And that's why the prophecies that our forefathers have prophesied eons ago, we're seeing them manifest today, because his word would not return to him void, but it would accomplish everything he sent it forth to accomplish. And that's why the word now is symbolic. His prophetic word is symbolic of this flying eagle. It is not a flying eagle for the cherubim, but it's still basically the same idea. His word that is accomplishing everything that he has spoken. The seraphim play a very important, very significant role in continuously praising Yahawah, and they provoke praises from his creations and even the 24 elders in the throne room. So everyone that hear the praises of the seraphim will begin to praise. You know, sometimes you break out in a praise that because spiritually you're hearing the praises of the seraphim. You're hearing the praises of the angels. You don't know it. And especially the more in tune you are, the more sensitive you are to the move of Ruach HaKodesh, he will allow you to break into a praise and you don't even know why. You don't understand why. You just feel like praising. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. And we know praises tear down strongholds. They destroy the works of darkness. You don't even know why the angels are beginning to praise, to trigger praise out of you. Because the Most High is using you and the praises from your lips to break a stronghold, to destroy a snare that the enemy is laid before you. You don't even know this. You just feel like praising. And you're destroying the works of the enemy. You're destroying the works of the enemy. You don't even know this. So you understand how important angels are? But yet they're not to be worshipped. They're here to serve us. Okay? They're here to serve us. So let's go on. They are also instrumental in speaking on his behalf. And we saw this when the Seraphim brought the live coal to Yahawah and put it on his lips. So let's look at Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts, saying, Come and see. So you see, one of the seraphim spoke as Hamashiach broke the seal. Then the beast, one of the beasts said, Come and see. Let's look at Yahawah chapter 6, verse 7. And he laid it upon my mouth. This is the seraphim. And said, Lo, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. So when they speak, they're not speaking their own words. They're speaking what Alahayam Yahawah is giving them to speak. All right? In the Bible, where we see the prophecy of judgment set against the king of Tyrus, Yahawah also delivered a judgment that was intended for the evil spirit of Satan called Lucifer, who ruled through that king. So you have to understand one thing. Satan, the Satans, because there are about 5 of them. One is in the bottomless pit, that's Azazel, and there are four roaming the earth. And beneath them, you have the fallen angels, and beneath them, you have the Nephilim spirits of various generations. That's their structure. All right? Satans do not bother themselves to possess a man. They possess kingdoms. All right? They possess kingdoms. Their thing is to have a kingdom that will rule the world. That's their thing. All right? And they work side by side with each other. So you have a fallen angel possessing the king, and you have the Satan possessing the empire. Because it's a realm, right? And this is what they deal with. They deal with realms. So we know that Yahawah brought judgment against the king of Tyrus. But when we begin to read the judgment, we're going to know for sure that he's not speaking to the king, but he's speaking to the evil spirit, the Satan, that is running the show through him. All right? And that is Lucifer. We know this devil by its angelic name called Gadriel, whose reign over Tyrus was transferred to King Nebuchadnezzar. That's the king of Babylon, according to the judgment of Yahawah. The Bible stated that Lucifer was a highly decorative cherub, but he was in fact a seraph or cherub because he had 12 wings. If he was a cherub, he would have had 4 wings and he would not be above the throne. Only the seraphim are above the throne. And before the throne. The cherubs are beneath the throne and around the throne. All right, we're going to see that the more we dig and study these angels. This is one of the many errors placed in the Bible to mislead us from the truth. Lucifer, son of the morning, was the highest of all the angels, and he was a seraph and not a cherub. He's almost like one of the phoenixes, like one of the Calcadries, because they had 12 wings too, but they're also the high-ranking seraph over the other 6 winged seraphs. So this one now, Lucifer, Gadriel, he had 12 wings, and he was above all the angels. All right, let's read on. The cherubim are ranked next in line, and so it does not make sense for a cherub to be placed over the seraphim. That's confusion. All right, that's how we know. Let's look at Yahawah chapter 28, verse 11. That's the book of Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 11. Moreover, the word of Yahawah came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus said Yahawah, Alahayam, you sealed up the sum, meaning the measurement, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You have been in Odan, the garden of Alahayam. Now, when did the king of Tyrus was in the garden of Odan? When it's no longer on the earth? So he is now speaking prophetically to the evil spirit, the Satan that is running the show behind this king. The king is just the poster child, as they will call him. He's just the face, but the real evil is coming from this Satan. Every precious stone was your covering: the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of your tabrets, that's your tambourines, and of your pipes was prepared in you in the day that you were created. So everything that he had was given to him from the day that he was created. All of his beauty, his wisdom, everything given to him the day that he was created. He didn't have to earn anything. He was created beautiful and musical. Verse 14, you are the anointed cherub that covered, and that should have been seraph. Okay? That's why I have it highlighted in different color. And I have set you so. You were upon the holy mountain of Alahayam. You have walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. We're going to look at that in a little while, what that means. So now, is he calling the king of Tyrus a cherub or a seraph? No, he's speaking to the Satan, all right, that is behind this king. Verse 15, you were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created till iniquity was found in you. By the multitude of your merchandise, they have filled the midst of you with violence, and you have sinned. Therefore, I will cast you as profane out of the mountain of Alahayam. And the mountain of Alahayam is where he said, the garden of Odan. That's where his sanctuary is. That's where his house is. All right? O covering cherub, O covering seraph. Why was he called a covering seraph? Because he was above the throne and he covered the throne with his 12 wings. From the midst of the stones of fire, your heart, let me read that again. And I will destroy you, O covering seraph, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before the kings, that they may behold you. So you see what corrupted him? He was the number one angel. He was the angel over the other angels. He was beautiful. He was adorned. He had wisdom. He was musical. He had everything going for him until he turned it upon himself. And not only did he turn it upon himself, but he was able to cause a third of the angels to revere him as well. We see from Yahazakaal's description of this angel that he was placed above the throne to cover it with 12 wings. Therefore, he would not be a cherub, as cherubim take the lower position beneath the throne and around the throne, but never above the throne. The beautiful description also tells us how highly decorative he was, and musical at that, as he had tambourines. That's why we see how greatly music can influence people to do wickedness, to feel a certain way and do more wickedness. Right? All right. Music is a powerful tool. Very powerful. The precious stones, all set in gold, were part of his outward beauty, and he had wisdom. So that's what the pipes represent. The pipes were the settings, the golden settings in which all of the stones were set in. And he had wisdom. He had free rein to go to the garden of Odan, which is located on the mountain of Alahayam, and to roam amidst the stones of fire. The stones of fire is the house, the sanctuary of Yahawah, where his throne is. It looked like it was built with stones of fire. When you look at the description, that's what it looks like. And that's what it sounds like. And Lucifer, who is Gadriel, was able to move freely throughout his house. He had that freedom. It is interesting to note that Lucifer, who's Gadriel, was also head over all the angels, not just the Seraphim. So let's look at 2 Chronicles chapter 14, verse 9 to see what these stones of fire really are. And the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me up and bore me into heaven. And I went in until I drew near to a wall which was built out of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to frighten me. I went into the tongues of fire and drew near a large house which was built of crystals, and the walls of the house were like a mosaic of hailstones, and the floor was made of crystals like stone. Its ceiling was like the path of stars and lightning flashes, and between them were fiery cherubim. So that's where the cherubim are located, around the throne in the house of Alahayam and beneath his throne. Verse 12, their sky was clear as water, a flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its doors blazed with fire. I entered that house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no pleasure or life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold of me. As I shook and trembled, I fell on my face, and I saw a vision, and lo, there was a second house greater than the first. And all the doors stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. And in every respect, it was splendid and magnificent to the extent that I cannot describe it to you. Its floors was of fire, and above it was lightning, and the path of the stars, and its ceiling also was flaming fire. And I looked and saw a throne set on high. Its appearance was like crystal, and its wheels were like a shining sun. And there was the vision of cherubim. And from beneath the throne came rivers of fire, so that I could not look at it. That's the glory. This is all the glory of Alahayam. Verse 20. And he who is great in glory sat on the throne, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun and was whiter than any snow. Gadriel was able to walk in the garden of Odan and throughout the house of Alahayam, as he was the number one seraph. But what caused him to fall from his high position? Envy, jealousy, lust, and pride. When Alahayam created Adam and Yahawah, it deposed Gadriel as number one over his creation, as Adam and Yahawah were created in the image of Alahayam, making them not angels but very powerful beings. And this is one thing that we need to understand. The angels were not created in his image or likeness. They do have certain attributes. Only Adam and Yahawah and their descendants. Well, let's stick with Adam and Yahawah. Excuse me. Only Adam and Yahawah were created in the image and likeness of Alahayam. And he created them as spirits first. And then he created their souls after. All right? And when he created Adam and Yahawah, they now became the number one creation over all of his creation. You see, Gadriel had that position because he was number one over all the angels and the creation, until Alahayam Yahawah created Adam and Hawa. But you see, before all of this happened, Gadriel was already beholding himself. And this incident was the tipping point that caused him to fall. It was the tipping point. It was the last straw that broke the camel's back. That was it. He was done. Because he was full of pride. He already felt, I'm number one. I got at least a third of the angels looking up to me. And now all of a sudden, I got to come and bow to these two beings that you created. No, 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 no. He had a problem with that. They became higher than him, and this did not sit well with him. This was his tipping point, and as he was already beholding himself with such beauty, corrupting himself along with the 1/3 of the angels who began to revere him. And now, not only did he want to depose, and if possible, dispose of Adam and Hawa, he also wanted to cause the other 2/3 of angels to worship him like the other 1/3. It's like he wanted it all now. So why not go all the way to the top and try to depose Alahayam and be number one over him, meaning Alahayam? So you see what happened when pride comes in? You don't stop at one little thing. It continues to grow and manifest itself in many different evil ways. He was rotten, and he didn't even know it. He was rotten. Alahayam cast him down from his high position and removed his glory. But yet he did not restrict him from the Garden of Odan just yet, as he played a role in the choice that Adam and Hawa had to make, which would either promote them in the garden or demote them. And it was here in the garden where he devised a plan to try to destroy them. And as the story goes, they fell into sin due to disobedience to Alahayam, and they were demoted from their high position, just like Gadriel. Now, what was this promotion that Alahayam was going to give to Adam and Hawa? They were already created in his image and in his likeness. Well, there was the issue of the glory of Gadriel. It was removed from him. So now he wanted to give this glory to Adam and Hawa if they had persevered and rejected the temptation that Gadriel came to them in the garden to tell them, oh, no, 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 you can go and eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He doesn't want you to eat of it because in the day that you eat of it, you'll be like gods, knowing both good and evil. All right? And that was the promotion that they missed. And not only did they miss the promotion, but they were also demoted. And that's why early on we read where their eyes were able to behold the angels singing, and now they cannot. When they go into the cave, they can't see beyond the walls of the cave because now they're natural people. All right? Natural people. No longer spiritual and natural or physical. They're now just purely physical. Adam and Hawa were so powerful that all the angels trembled in their presence, which proves to us that they were created to be more powerful than the angels initially. So when Adam and Hawa were created, the angels trembled in their presence. All the angels trembled in their presence because they were in the likeness and in the image of Alahayam Yahawah. All right? And as they were before sin, so will we be again when we are regathered and restored to our divine position. We will be powerful beings again and ruling over all the angels. And that's the reason why we are not supposed to worship angels. We were never created to worship angels. The angels were created to serve us. All right? It's just that we are living in a fallen state, And so now we are purely physical people until we are restored. Adam and Hawa, Adam and Hawa were also powerful looking people, as they had magnificent, impressive heights, unlike us today, where our stature has dramatically dropped. Like there's some people they call them they're vertically challenged. Some people say that because they're short. When Adam and Hawa were created, they were not short. They were not even average heights. They were tall, right? They were tall people. They were magnificent people. They were powerful. I didn't have Adam being however tall that magnificent height was, and Hawa below him, she was the same height as him. So let me say this to you. Not only are we going to be restored to our position in the kingdom, but our magnificent height is going to be restored. Our stature, both physical and spiritual, is going to be restored. So we're not going to be short people. We're not going to be short people. All right? However tall that is, I don't know. All right? I don't know. So let's read on. And not only our stature because of sin, we have been made lower. Sorry, let me read that again. Okay, let me read that again. And not only our stature because of sin, we have been made lower than the angels in power, glory, wisdom, knowledge, and anything else that once made Adam and Hawa beings to be feared. So everything about us have dropped considerably, and it's even worse now because compared to our forefathers, they had more knowledge than we did. Than we do, actually. They have more knowledge than what we have today. However, we have something that they didn't have. We have Ruach HaKodesh. All right, we have someone who is greater than what they had, and that's Ruach HaKodesh. And by faith, when we believe in when he speaks, that brings us into another area completely, another playing field altogether. Because faith is, our forefathers, yes, they had faith. The righteous ones, they had faith. And they saw the miracles, and and they saw the presence the presence of Alahayam in their visions and in their dreams. They had the word that was not corrupted. We today, we're in a different ball game, different playing field altogether. We have a word, which is our Bible, that's corrupted with a lot of changes. They changed the names of our forefathers. They changed the names of our celebrations. All kinds of things that they've done. They've taken things out, put things in. So now we are solely dependent on Ruach HaKodesh by faith to believe in what he speaks to us, which puts us in another playing field that is completely different from what they were in. So it doesn't make us less than what they are. It kind of balances itself out, doesn't it? Okay? We're now believing by faith. We are now depending on on our ears to hear, and our hearts to receive. We're dependent on the word that when it's given to us through Ruach HaKodesh, when we go to the word written down and he speaks to us, everything now is by faith for us. Everything. Everything. Which makes this an awesome time to be alive. Because either you're going to make it or you don't. You can't go halfway and then, expect to make it. You have to go all the way. All right? So let's read on. Still have 2 more slides to go. The first book of Adam and Hawa, chapter 34, verse 5. At first, angels trembled at the presence of Adam and were afraid of him. But now Adam trembled before the angels and was afraid of them. And that's why when we read the accounts of when our forefathers have visions of angels, they faint. They tremble, fall on their faces, and they faint. And you just got to come and touch them and raise them up because of fear. Because this flesh of ours cannot handle the glory of Alahayam Yahawah that is reflected in his angels. All right? The Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 23, verse 4. Then I looked into the vision, and my eyes looked at the side of the garden of Eden, and I saw there a man of imposing height. And he was great, powerful in stature, incomparable in appearance. I mean, he was gorgeous. You can't compare him to any other man. All right? Beautiful to behold. Verse 5. He was embracing a woman who looked like his size and stature. So he wasn't nice and tall. You know, the saying goes tall, dark, and handsome. And she was like, a couple feet beneath him or a foot beneath him. No, they were both the same height and have the same stature. That's how Alahayam created Adam and Hawa. What you're seeing today, the changes in the stature of men and women, is because of sin. All right? Sin is a spiritual toxin along with the toxins that have been put in our food, in the water, and the air. Everything now has reduced us. Okay? But that's going to be changed back to what we were supposed to be, what we are supposed to be in the coming future. They were standing under a tree in the garden of Eden, and the fruit of this tree was like a bunch of grapes on a vine. So there goes that apple theory, right? It wasn't an apple. Standing beneath the tree was one who had the appearance of a serpent, but it had hands and feet of a man, and it had wings on its shoulders. There were 6 pairs of wings, so that there were 6 wings on the right shoulder and 6 wings on the left shoulder. So what is Abraham describing here? He's describing a seraphim. And even though the glory was removed out of Gadriel, or it was shut off, really, he still retained his physical features, right? He had 12 wings, 6 pairs, all right? And that means that he was a seraph. I call him a seraphim. Seraphim is plural. He was a seraph. He still is a seraph, but a fallen seraph, all right? And this is who we're dealing with here. Verse 7, as I continued looking, I saw the man and the woman eating the fruit from the tree, and the serpent was holding the grapes of the tree and feeding them to the 2 I saw embracing each other. And I said, who are these 2 that embrace, and who is this between them? And what is that fruit, or what is the fruit which they are eating, O mighty eternal one? And he said, this is the world of men. This is Adam, and that one which is his desire upon the earth is Hawa. But he who is between them is the ungodliness of their behavior that is sending them on the way to perdition. It is Azazel. Now, even though like I said, they make a lot of changes, all right, to confuse us. It was not Azazel, it was Gadriel. Okay? It was Gadriel. First Hanawat chapter 69 verse 6. And the third, now he's giving you the names of all the fallen angels, the main ones, okay? And the third was named Gadriel. It is he who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Yahawah. So we see different names for the Satan that led Yahawah astray. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's Azazel or Gadriel. It was a seraph and it was a Satan. It was the highest of all the angels that led Adam and Hawa astray. But we are sticking with Azazel is in the pit right now because Azazel is the scapegoat. That's what Azazel means. And Gadriel is the one running the show. This is the one that is going to run the beast empire number 7, which is going to be a technology-based empire. Okay? Let's look at Psalm 8, verse 4. What is man that you're mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visited him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and have crowned him with glory and honor. So that's what happened with Adam and Hawa fell. They fell, they were demoted now to be beneath the angels. Oberai, the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, verse 9. But we see Yahawah, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he by the grace of Alahayam should taste death for every man. So this is what Hamashiach had to do. He had to come in the flesh so that to activate the redemption plan for what Adam and Hawa did in the Garden of Eden when they disobeyed the one commandment that they were given. And just like they were made a little lower than the angels, Hamashiach now had to make himself a little lower than the angels so that he can come into our realm, into our dimension, to activate the redemption plan for us, to become our eternal sacrifice, to bring light in this world, to bring his truth into this world, so that now after his death and resurrection, he can release Ruach HaKadosh to finish up what he has started. Okay? If we study angels, it is inevitable that we will touch on the fallen angels, as they are also playing their roles according to all that Yahawah is permitting them to do. However, we will not spend too much time on them as we are learning about Yahawah and his holy angels. But to understand what had transpired in the past, starting with this seraph, it will also help us to understand the limitations of these fallen angels as compared to the holy angels. That's why we are not to fear them. Yes, they're running their agendas today, for tomorrow, and tomorrow. All right? We're not to fear them, because they are more of us than they are of them. They are more afraid of us. That's why they have to run these agendas. Okay? Therefore, we should not fear, as there are 2 times as much of the holy angels as compared to the fallen angels. So right there, off the bat, they're defeated, because they're 2/3 of the holy angels compared to their 1/3. Don't worry about the Nephilim. They don't have the same power as the fallen angels. They're just numbers. For us, they have a greater effect on us because they have more power than we have. Speaking of the Nephilim. But even that, when we are in the presence of Yahawah and we're filled with his glory spiritually, we have more power than them. That's why they're afraid of us. All right? That's the one thing that Alahayam wants us to know and to understand. We're not to fear these fallen angels and their devices and their agents. We're not to fear them. They're running the governments all around the world, bringing about a whole bunch of confusion. But we're supposed to remain steadfast, believing and having faith, and that will empower us to keep going on another day until the day we are regathered. So these holy angels, these fallen angels, which are only 1/3. So let me read that last sentence again. Therefore we should not fear, as there are 2 times as much of the holy angels as compared to the fallen angels, which are only 1/3. So by calculations alone, they are already defeated by the holy angels, if it had to come to that. If the holy angels had a war against them, they're defeated. They don't have not even an ounce of power compared to what these holy angels have. Okay? They're defeated. They know that they're defeated. But you see what they're doing, and this is by divine design too, is whoever does not belong to Alahayam, Yahawah, they're being weeded out. They're being weeded out and destroyed. Okay? Remember from the very beginning when we read that scripture that says that he's given spirits to all nations except to his people, whoever belongs to him, even of the Gentiles. If you are of the Gentile and you believe in Yahawah and you belong to him, he will not give you an evil spirit to draw you away from him. You are believing in him because you belong to him. All right? You belong to him. Let's look now at Yahawah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 11. Your pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of your viols, as a musical instrument like a violin, I believe. The worm is spread under you, and the worms cover you. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For you had said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Alahayam, meaning the angels of Alahayam. He wants to be above Alahayam and above all of his angels. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Not only does he want to sit above Alahayam, he wants to sit above his people too. Verse 14, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like Ha'olah the Most High. That's another title of Alahayam. He is the Most High, or the highest. Ha'olah. So all of this is pride. This creature is full of pride, and it is craving attention, and it wants to be powerful. It wants to be above the creation of Alahayam and above him. Okay? It wants to be above him, but that's never going to happen. Luke chapter 10, verse 17. And the 70, these are the 70 disciples, returned again with joy, saying, Adawan, meaning master, even the devils are subject unto us through your name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. So instead of saying, congratulations, my children, you have done well, what did Hamashiach say to them? He said, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. That was the first statement that he made compared to what they were saying. They were rejoicing because the demons, the devils were subject unto them, meaning they were able to cast them out. They were able to heal the people. Okay? Verse 19. Behold, I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. You see, he gave them that power when he sent them out as the 70 disciples. Verse 20, notwithstanding, in this rejoice not. Don't rejoice because I gave you power. Don't rejoice because the devils are subject to you. Okay? Don't rejoice that you had victory over the devils. Don't rejoice that the spirits are subject unto you. I'm continue on my reading. But rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. Stop thinking that you have victory over the devil. Focus your attention on making sure that your names are not blotted out of the Lamb's book of life. Satan's fall from heaven and his status was quick as lightning. This lesson that Hamashiach was teaching his disciples was a very important one, as pride can easily enter a person's heart if they think that they have even the evil spirit subjected unto them. It's so easy to become prideful. And this is what we see happening with a lot of people today in ministry. You're full of pride. Full of pride. Hamashiach was redirecting his disciples' attention to the real reason why they should rejoice. Because their names were written in the Lamb's book of life, which meant that they had the final victory over these devils. So you take your eyes off the devils and you put your eyes up to heaven, where the book of the Lamb's book of life is. And rejoice and give praises to the one who is making sure that you're maintaining your walk on the path. Rejoicing in him and not in these devils. Because these devils are so slick. They're serpents and they're scorpions. Because they slither like a serpent and they sting like a serpent. And with their sting their sting is supposed to destroy you like a scorpion. And they're so deceptive. They don't mind being humbled or embarrassed or brought down low, as long as they bring you down with them. And they will organize it to work that way. You know, there are people in this world that you see have taken a fall. They were high up in their positions, whether in a church ministry or even in politics or whatnot, and something happened, and like that, you have the news, the media talking about them and reporting about them. They love this kind of stuff. These same people are part of the same fallen angels, agents. In fact, that's who they are. They're agents. Anyone that makes it in the news today, they're agents. Don't kid yourself. All right? Don't be fooled. Don't be deceived. If you make it on mainstream news, you belong to these people, these devils. They belong to these devils. And they're doing their duty because they relish in shame and embarrassment. And when it's time for their promotion, that's when they're given this news, media, propaganda, machinery that is continuously flowing that would never let you forget. Remember that man that went up the steps? I think it was the Oscars, and he slapped this other guy. This one guy slapped the other guy, and it was in the in the news media, and people were talking about it. All these are ways in which these people bring shame to themselves, because this is how the devils work. They love shame. They love embarrassments. So the more embarrassed you can be, the more shame you can bring to yourself and to your name, the higher the position they will place you in their kingdom. So they don't mind when people are boasting that they have caused them to be subject under them, because what they're going to do is they're going to put a hook in you and bring you down to their level. But when you take your eyes off of them and not give them any credit for anything, whether good or bad, don't say anything about them, but you give praises to the Most High that He has found you worthy and that your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now they have nothing to hold on to you. But you start boasting about, oh, these devils are subject unto me. They could now have a hook in you. It's called pride. Be very careful. Be very, very careful. Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Be very careful. All right, let's continue on. Whereas to celebrate over having the devil subjected under them could change just as quickly as when and how and why Satan, who is Gadriel, fell in the first place. And once we have the final victory over all these devils, now we can and will rejoice because we will be rewarded with the glory that Adam and Hawa once had. I missed a word there, but also with the glory that Gadriel lost. So Adam and Hawa lost their glory in the Garden of Eden. Gadriel lost his before them. And Alahayam was going to give them, if they had persevered through the temptation, he would have given them Gadriel's glory. And then they would be promoted even higher in the kingdom, in his kingdom. All right, but we know what happened. And this was the initial reason why Alahayam planted the tree of knowledge in the garden, because he wanted to give them Gadriel's glory. And some people will ask, but why put that tree there? Why? Because he wanted to promote them. And the only way to promote them is to place them in a position for them to choose whether to be obedient to his voice or not. If they were obedient, they would have been promoted and that tree destroyed. But they were demoted and the tree was still destroyed. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, it was destroyed. And now, Alahayam, he knew all of this was going to happen, and he made a way back for us, the descendants of Adam and Hawa, and them too, to find our way back into the Garden of Eden and to reclaim their glory. And also now we will have the glory of God.